My name's Brandon. Thanks for tuning in to WUSC-FM and HD1 Columbia. Today we got a special interview. Do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
I'm Ruth.
My name's Pear.
My name is Joni.
And this is Ruth and the Bardo. Just to start off, I do want to kind of just like break the ice, you know. So outside of music, what makes you all happy? Good start.
Probably smoking cigarettes. What about you?
Movies,
I concur. Yeah, I like movies too.
friends.
Spending quality time with friends. It's
Yeah.
great.
It's a joy of life.
Fresh air.
Fresh
Not
air.
fresh air.
Yeah, hard to come by. In
Yeah, I
Philadelphia.
I'm a hypocrite. I don't seek it out, but fresh air.
The mountains.
True.
Yeah.
Awesome. Really good answer so far.
Thank
So-
you, Brandon.
Yeah, of course, fair. So, I guess I want to get started with just the history of Ruth and the Bardo. I know you started in Columbia, not with Joni and Pear. Kind of want to see
Okay.
the evolution of Ruth and the Bardo from Ruth.
So, started as just me in my room, and I made the first album, Asking for a Friend, by myself. And then, what did I do? I went to New York for a while. And I was in New York, and I didn't make anything for like the whole time I was there. Made like one song the whole time I was there. And then I got back, and I linked up with this other person named Sam, and we made music for a while. That was like, then Pear joined the band. That was like 2019. Pear joined the band in like 2019, and me and Sam made a record called I Met Him When We Spoke. And then Sam left. Then I moved to Philly with Sam. Sam left the band, and then I made, and Pear was not in Philly yet, so I made Wept by myself, just me, and then Pear and Joni joined the band again. Well, Pear joined the band again, and now we're here.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of gaps, but that's kind of the ethos of it. Like,
And Vasco.
and Vasco is also in our band, who could not be here today, but is our drummer. But Pear's been in Ruth and the Bardo for like since 2019, however many years that is. So
Mathematics.
mathematics, couldn't tell you.
Same.
Big time math. Pear, Joni, do you mind talking about what music projects you were involved in before Ruth?
But pre-Ruth and the Bardo, I just made ambient music on my own and like was working on productions. I also played in Slush like when I was in high school. And then I joined Ruth and the Bardo like shortly after that.
Yeah, I was in a group called King Clement when I lived in Columbia in high school. And then I also have a semi-active Bandcamp project called Daytime Foods.
Sweet. Check out all those projects whenever you have the chance. So Ruth, you said you went to New York. What was the goal of that? Any aims that you wanted to complete?
Well, I moved initially to go to Pratt Institute in New York, and then I dropped out after 3 weeks. So then I was kind of living there for a while. I guess my goal, I lived in like a show house while I was there for a minute that had a lot of noise, like experimental electronic noise type stuff. And then I was like homeless for a minute, and then I moved back in there, and then I was homeless for a minute, and then I moved back in there. It was a whole thing. But basically, yeah, I lived, shouts out Retrograde, kind of. They're all right. I don't know. It was cool though. I guess my goal in living there was to, like, I saw like Deli Girls and Dream Crusher for the first time, and that kind of like rocked my world. Like in 2018, when at least Deli Girls was still kind of starting off, and Dream Crusher had more of a following. But when I saw that like changed my. I was like, oh, music. Yeah, this is how you do it. So yeah.
Pear, Joni, any artists like Deli Girls or Dream Crusher that kind of opened your third eye to how, or like that made you want to make music or changed the way you made music?
That is a good question. In early 2020, I watched the movie Under the Skin, and Mika Levy's soundtrack to Under the Skin is probably the biggest like shift to the way that I thought about music since I got into music. It's the biggest example, but there's a lot of smaller examples.
Probably in high school, Dinosaur Jr. kind of rocked my world, and then in the past couple years, I think everything was kind of broken down by Planning for Burial. The record Below the House kind of, I don't know, changed the way I go about things. It kind of guides what I do now, I think.
Sick. Awesome. So y'all are in Philly right now.
Yes.
Why the move? Biggest differences between here and Philly, musically, culturally, all that fun stuff.
Okay. I think initially I moved just try to get on hormones and stuff like that, but also for the music. I think there's sometimes more opportunity in the Northeast, at least. Maybe outside of like Atlanta, in the South, but yeah, I don't know what's differences. I mean, people are really rude, but I mean, I've become kind of rude, and I think that's not like a bad thing. And like, I feel like I got like thick skin now, and like kind of like, if I have to tell someone to like not mess with me, I can be like, don't mess with me. PG version of what they would really say in Philly. I don't know. That's it's just faster. A lot more going on. Yeah, a lot more like just it's like keep your head down and keep moving kind of city. Very working class city. Very keep your head down type of city. Yeah.
Pear, Joni, anything you want to add to that?
That makes sense. I moved for similar reasons about a year later. And yeah, that's kind of, I mean, there's like it's more fast paced. It was a big adjustment, but now I'm like kind of used to it and I like it a lot. It's like, I mean, there's a lot of like little kind of like cultural differences and stuff, I guess.
Oh yeah, I love Philly.
Yeah, me too.
I like love Philly.
Philly is the
Let me
best.
not get it twisted. I
Yeah,
love Philly.
And people are blunt and rude, but like they look out for each other. You know? It's like yeah.
It's you like find your people and kind of, it's like the communities there are very strong.
Yeah, strong sense of community on like every level, which is great.
City of neighborhoods.
For sure.
Sweet. Kind of want to talk about the creative process. I know that it was a 7-piece band at one point. Y'all played a show in Columbia with a whole bunch of people. Kind of just want to hear how songwriting works now in this 3-piece band versus the 7-piece, some challenges you face, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. I think so now I think we've gotten a lot more done than we did when it was a 7-piece. I think it kind of came to an artistic like standstill at being a 7-piece, to be honest. But that was more just like executive dysfunction, I feel like. But so now we've like written a whole album in like 3 months or something, cutting down to a 4-piece, and we have them all like ready to go into the studio, and it's like honestly less than 3 months at this point. So I think we all like the 2 of us the 3 of us all mesh like very well musically and artistically, so it feels like I don't even really have to think about it. It just kind of comes,
Yeah, and Vasco.
Yeah. So 4-piece.
Yeah.
Vasco shouts out.
Yeah, I was gonna say something but I forgot.
It's pretty collaborative.
Yeah.
At this point, and kind of coming from the like singer-songwriter background that Ruth kind of had for like 3 albums,
Mm.
and then now kind of like that's still very much the core of
Definitely.
what we do. Is there's like, and it's cool to do them like as acoustic like that, because they are still at their core like Ruth's like songs, but we kind of, I don't know, it's like we play as a band and we jam and we like get ideas from jamming and playing together. It's not just like tacking stuff on.
Yeah.
It's all synthesized very cohesively. It feels very organic, and I don't know.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's like writing music is a lot easier now. I think it's like collaborative in that way. Like it's just, it kind of like flows out from all of us in different ways, and I like that.
Before I transition to your newest album that's coming out in June, maybe July, maybe even August, kind of want to talk about just House of Yarga, just how living in a venue kind of shaped the band, shaped popularity within Philly, all that fun stuff. I'm saying all that fun stuff a lot, but this stuff is fun. Tell me I'm wrong.
House of Yarga. I figured out that I was moving into House of Yarga 2 days before I moved into House of Yarga. They like posted an Instagram story, and I was like, all right, I'll move in there. And it's like a house with what, 8 people, 9 people, 10 people.
Yeah, probably fluctuating between 7 and 10, depending
Yes.
on the season.
It's sometimes people's partners
Sometimes
are there.
11.
Sometimes 11. It's a lot of people. It's a big house.
Really chaotic.
It's so chaotic. But shouts out Salt.
Shout out to Salt.
Holds it down.
Hold it down for
as
sure.
always.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. I think it's cool to have. I think it was important to have it as a jumping off point in Philadelphia to get shows rolling.
Right.
And to kind of like, we got booked to play at our own house with, Tagabo, Doug, and Knife Play and Waveform from Connecticut. And that was kind of our first big show, and like we only got that from living there, to be honest. So it's a very good kind of jumping off point in that way. Yeah.
Sick. Speaking of jumping off points, I'm gonna go ahead and go into that album.
Cool.
Yeah. First off, just like biggest inspirations that could be like musically, nature, movies, whatever. That kind of formed the album. I know that it's a lot more collaborative than Wept, from what you were saying earlier. So kind of just want to hear input from all of y'all, how or what you contributed to the newest album.
Okay. Influences, I feel like Wednesday from Asheville and MJ Linderman, big influences. Maybe more recently, they're great bands. I don't know. What about y'all? What have you had in mind?
I think there's a lot of stuff, like, and Ruth was just talking about like groups like Knife Play and They're Gunning a Body of Water, and I feel like the kind of like experimental end of shoegaze and slowcore fused with like either folk rock or noise rock or all of these other sounds is like really kind of coming together in Philadelphia and around Philadelphia in like a really, really unique and interesting way. So kind of the like sounds that the city is generating right now, I feel like is feeding into us as well as like what
For
we're
sure.
bringing from like South Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's like a lot of like southern decay to it. Like, or I had that in mind writing the songs, and kind of like, the underbelly or whatever. Just kind of some Ethel Cain vibes in there. I mean, doesn't sound like Ethel Cain, but like that energy of like
It's Southern Gothic.
Yes.
Southern Gothic
Yeah.
slowcore. Southern Gothic slowcore shoegaze is how I
Yeah.
describe it.
Yeah, that's a good descriptor.
That's a good descriptor.
Sick. I kind of want to go back into Columbia then. Just what's the biggest differences between the Philly scene and the Columbia scene, whether it's musically or like bands supporting each other? If there's any differences.
I
mean, the differences are like so huge that it's like impossible to really to like articulate. It's, I don't know.
I guess what I say, so for my time in the Columbia scene, which was like 2015 to 2019-ish, with a little year break in New York, I would say I think that the scene here is much more tight-knit, and I think that is good and bad. And I don't even mean to put it in terms of good or bad, but I think that can, when you know everyone, you know everyone. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And Philly is not like that. There's kind of a lot of branching scenes that, like, there's like kind of the hardcore scene, which is Philly is like huge. I mean, it's probably the biggest scene. It's the hardcore punk scene, just from, I don't know what about Philadelphia brings that, but there's a lot of hardcore heads. And then I think there's more of the indie crowd, which I think also coalesces with the college crowd, which I think is probably more similar to the scene here, if that makes sense. So like Temple has their house shows, Drexel has their house shows, sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think there's like different offshoots, whereas Columbia is kind of just one big body of work, you know.
Yeah, I think the scenes in the South are they're like, instead of being concentrated all in one place, it's like spread out over several smaller cities.
Yeah.
And it's like the scene kind of, through the internet, it can all kind of like coalesce into one thing, but it's, yeah, kind of tighter knit, smaller groups.
Like, shouts out Poorly Drawn House, great band, but, like, kind of the Charleston scene, you're seeing Dawning, which...
Yeah, Dawning's great.
Dawning's great. Rest in peace.
R.A.P.
Wish I could have been at that last show.
Yeah.
Shouts out Jackson. There, we played with Dawning in Charleston, and I think that was like, I don't know, the Charleston scene is great. Also, throwing it out there. Yeah, that's what I had to say.
Sick, cool. And last thing about the newest album, just what was the name of the new album again?
It's called Ars Poetica.
Ars Poetica. Any meaning behind that? Or?
Yeah, Ars Poetica is a poetic form that's like, it's like a poem that is talking about why you write poetry, kind of, or what it means to write poetry as a poet, I think, is the definition.
Cool, sick. Kind of last couple things. Ruth, you said you mentioned going to Philly to or going to New York for hormone therapy, and to my knowledge, I think all of you are trans. So I just want to see if there's any advice you want to give to people who are trans in the South or kind of nervous to come out as trans, especially with some legislation that's being talked about reversing hormone therapy for trans people around here.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it to the straight way. I think that it's probably a good idea to start thinking about getting out of the Southeast. I think that I know that sounds defeatist, and I mean I'm born and raised, love it, love a lot about the South. But I think that if you have the means to do so, you should start making a plan to get out, and probably in the next, before 2025, I would say. And I know that's, I mean, I understand that, you know, privilege plays a part in that, and that, like, if you can't, then you can't. But you can do it. I did it, and I'm not for money. I'm not for money in the slightest. Every place that I've gone has been on my, like, I did that. So you can do it if I can do it. And because I didn't go to college, I don't have a degree, I have worked in restaurants my whole adult life. You can do it, and you will do it, and you can find friends to do it with. And really, it's already pretty hard to get hormones here, and it's already pretty. I mean, not to say I'm not a medicalist or anything of that nature, but if you want to go on hormones, you know, I think that in the next 5 years, I think that we're probably going to see a total revocation of trans rights in the Southeast, at least, if not the whole United States. So I think it would be wise to start making a plan and start, you know, I mean, what that's going to look like, who knows? But in any event, I don't think that it's safe, or it can progressively become unsafe for trans people in the Southeast as it goes on. Maybe even go to Atlanta or one of the cities. Also, could be you know, a good idea if you can't make it all the way out, because you might find deep communities there who are into protecting each other, and that's also an option. I don't want to fearmonger or say any of this to, like, sound defeated, but I think that it's inevitable, to be honest. So
Yeah, the prognosis is bleak, but at the end of the day, we gotta stick together, and we can do it.
Yeah. And I guess advice-wise or consolation to give is that your people are out there.
yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's gotta know. It's going back to the icebreaker question of, like, what, quality time with the people you find it's gonna keep you going.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
Advice to younger people in the community. They're still kind of figuring it out and trying to figure it out and trying to find a place, or, like, a place either geographically or within people where they can, like, be themselves, that it exists.
You will always find your chosen family, and no doubt, it will come to you before you even know it. You know? And the people that accept you will always be your family, no matter what. You know, even if you know, even whatever happens, you know, if you lose the true family, you know, you have your chosen family, and they will always be there. And that's the joy of life, is friends, probably more than anything.
Great, thank you so much. And just a last thing, just normal closer, just if you want to give out any shout-outs, anti-shout-outs, anything like that.
All right, shouts out Bosco.
Big shouts out Bosco.
Big
Shout out to Bosco.
big shout out Bosco.
Very core member of,
Yes.
like, what we do, and, like, what the whole sound of this album is kind of built on their back and their rhythms and what they bring.
Best drummer I know. So.
Yeah. Also from South Carolina.
Also from SC. So. Shouts out Ryan.
Shout out Ryan.
Shout out to
in DC.
Ryan.
Shouts out Ryan. Let's see.
Shout out Packy and Rob from the group Attic Posture, who are planning on engineering our record in February.
Shout out.
Shouts out Bailey and Blake Hunter. Come to the the movies Fire Connects Us in the Dark and see my ugly mug on the big screen.
Shout out to Blake and Bailey.
Shouts.
Very talented filmmakers that are consistently impressing me and only doing like bigger and better things, and it's really marvelous to watch them grow as artists and just do cool stuff.
Shouts to Kenny on the camera.
Shout out to Kenny on the camera.
Shouts out to Kenny on the camera. Shouts out. Shout out Cash in Philly.
Shout out to Cash.
Shout out to Cash.
Shout out to Cash. Shouts. What about you? You got a shout out.
Shout out Tim Swain for letting us use his guitars today. And
so what about shouts out Ray? Come on.
Oh yeah, shouts out the King Clement boys, Ray, Jake, and Stone. If y'all are
Big shout
tuning in, big shout out, my musical heroes.
Shout out to Kyle.
Yeah, shouts.
Shout out to Claire. Shout out to Emmy and Margie.
Shout out to Emmy and Margie. Shouts out to Binks. And
Shout out to
Bruce.
Binks and Bruce.
Biggish shouts to Binks and Bruce.
Shouts out my roommate Abe.
Shout out to Abe.
Shout out to Abe.
Big
Shout out to Vikram.
Shout out to
Shout out to Vikram.
Shout out to Priya. Shout out to everyone. Shout out to our to everyone that is just around us and giving us life and love.
Shouts out to the extended chosen family, for real. Yeah. 803.
Awesome. My name is Brandon Jolley. This has been Ruth and
Shout
the
out to
Bardo.
Brandon.
Shout out to
Sorry,
Brandon. Shout out to Brandon.
Thanks. But yeah, this has been Ruth and the Bardo. Check out Fire Connectors in the Dark tomorrow, Thursday, December 22nd at 12 at the Nickelodeon Theater right on Main Street. I don't think that was mentioned earlier, but that's at the Nick. And keep a lookout on Bandcamp, Spotify, all the streaming services for Ars Poetica sometime in the summer of 2023. Peace out. Thanks for listening.